Hey y'all, I'm your host, Miss Nikki, and I welcome you to Something to Say, where we dig into topics that aren't really discussed in the church but are felt and experienced in everyday life. God always has something to say to every one of us. What is he saying today? Good morning. I have an update for you guys. I don't know if you've listened to my podcast about nurses who eat their young. I have an update because, as you all know, if you've listened to previous episodes, I am a nurse. And I decided to pick up a shift with a new agency. Now, last week, I went in, I did my orientation, and during the orientation, I noticed a few things that was wrong with this agency. And right away, I started to decide, hey, I don't know if I'm going to deal with these people because everything just seems so unprofessional. This, I'm hoping, is a word of encouragement for you guys. I've been stating for the longest through this podcast to not let people walk all over you. And I always discuss how this could be for any relationships, any situations that you are dealing with in life. A lot of the times, the Lord allows certain situations so that he can bless us, right? The enemy, I know, he's used by God to bless us, and he doesn't realize that he is used by God he does realize it. The enemy is so evil that he will take any shot that he possibly could to abuse us. So he'll allow God to use him, and then the Lord will turn what the enemy meant for our bad for our good. So let me just get right into the story time to explain to you guys what I'm talking about. So as I stated, I did an orientation. I went through the preliminary stuff. And during the orientation, again, I noticed that there were some things that were unprofessional. We were working with a new system. The RN, the nurse, which would have been my clinical supervisor, she was to go over the programming, which would allow me to chart for my patients, which will allow me to clock in and clock out. Now, the last agency that I worked for, which I'm not going to disclose, they also had paperwork, just in case, like we all know, systems, technology doesn't always work out the way that we expect it to. So you usually keep paper trail to kind of back you up, in case you try to sign in and things don't go through electronically and it's not taking the client's signature when you're clocking out. You have paperwork that the client can sign. Also, you can sign and you can get your charting done. That way it doesn't look like you weren't doing your job or you weren't, neglecting your patient during your shift. So I, in the process of the orientation, have been asking this clinical supervisor about paperwork, and I noticed that she was a little snappy at me, but I held my peace because God has grown me in such a way where I began to realize that it's not worth it. A lot of back and forth and the way that a person behaves, you don't always have to answer to that because we have to pay attention to Satan and when he's using people, and especially when he's using them to come up against us. So I noticed that she was a little snappy in her response. She basically said, no, we don't have any paperwork. We don't use any paperwork. That is the point of technology. So I didn't open up my mouth. Right. And at the end of an orientation, an interview, things of that nature, usually you're asked if you have any questions. And at the moment, I couldn't think of anything at the top of my mind. I was just proud of myself and how I just passed an unexpected exam that was given to me. And I guess the exam is to make sure that you know what you need to know in order to take care of clients, right? There's nothing wrong with being safe. There's nothing wrong with double checking. But I was shocked that I just got a 92 in the exam because I haven't been to work in a year. And a lot of the times when you haven't been in the medical field for some time, you could kind of forget some things, especially when you're a new nurse like myself. I've been a nurse for 3 years. So it hasn't really been that long. So, my mind was pretty much on that. And I really didn't want to ask any questions aside from, the fact that were there some type of paperwork to kind of back up what I needed if the system had failed. I don't 100% trust technology, because paperwork will definitely, especially if everybody's signature on there, paperwork will definitely back you up. So again, it was stated to me that this was the whole reason for them transitioning from paperwork to technology. No, there was no paperwork that I could use to back myself up. And I basically asked again, I said, well, what if the system shuts down? What if I'm trying to clock in and I can't? Or what if I'm trying to chart and I can't? And she basically stated to me, oh, well, if we contact the client and we ask the client if you were there and they basically confirm that you were there, then you'll get paid for that shift. I didn't find myself completely comfortable with that answer, but I accepted it. Why? I don't know. I just did. And my spirit, I knew that I shouldn't have accepted that. So when I got home and I started thinking about the shift and, going over everything in my mind, my mind bringing me back to the orientation, what was asked, what was told, that kind of stuff. I began to realize, hey, I know that the client always has their own supplies, their own gloves, their own, whatever the patient may need in that particular home. Every patient is different. So I said, I didn't get a chance to get the plan of care to kind of look over it for myself and see if this is something that I want to take on. Also, when I did the meet and greet, the client's mom had stated to me that this particular agent, she's noticed that some nurses in the past they've had issues with. And she stated, a lot of the medications that are on the plan of care is not correct. That those things needed to be straightened out. And when I left home, I said, well, don't worry. What I'm going to do is I'm going to contact the clinical nurse, and I'm going to make her aware of the fact that there are some things missing. So she stated, okay, I'm the type of person that, yes, this is a job. Yes, this is employment. But if I'm a nurse, I'm there to care for my patient, and my job is solely to advocate for that patient. I am there to make sure that the patient gets everything that they need. If the guardian of that patient needs to rest during the time that I'm there, I'm going to make sure that I learn everything that I need to learn to make sure that my client is safe, protected, and that the guardian doesn't have to do anything, because I am there to lift that load, right? So I call the agency and I'm pretty much stating to the recruiter, the person who recruited me for the position, the person that I discussed the hours and we made an agreement on, I contact her. She was my first point of contact. Now keep in mind, at this point in time, I still am not familiar with everybody in the office. It has not yet been a week. It's only been a couple days. We're talking my first meet and greet for the office was on Monday. My first meet and greet of the same week for the family was on Thursday. And I was planning on starting my shift yesterday, right? So again, I don't know who the higher ups are. I haven't learned everybody in the office yet. So my point of contact is the first person that I spoke to about my shift. I call her. She said, matter of fact, back it up. Actually, I didn't call her. When I left the client's home, because the client and I had such a good conversation in the Lord, might I add, yes, the client's grandmother is saved, right? She's a Christian. And you know how we Christians get when we get together. We start talking about the Lord. Next thing you know, it's a 3-hour meet and greet. A meet and greet should only be about an hour to 45 minutes. They should not take that long. Pretty much the client's guardian is going over all the preliminary stuff, the type of diagnosis that the patient has, all the medications they will be taking, what the client's guardian will need me to do while I'm there, where they will be if I need to contact them, etc. But again, we started to get into the word of the Lord, and encouragement started going on. She started to speak to my spirit. I'm speaking to her. So we were well over past the time that I should have been there. Cool. We had a good time. When I leave, my intentions were to call the office, but this same recruiter, she ended up calling me. And she says, hey, Nicole, hi, how are you? How did everything go with the meet and greet? Do you like the family? Is this something that you think you want to, start a shift with? And I said, yes, I'm very excited. He's a sweet little boy. I just go over the whole thing. And she said, well, do you have any questions for me? I said, well, there's one thing. I said, I did speak to, the guardian, and she stated that the plan of care is not up to date. All the medications and everything that is on there are not listed. So she says, I said to her, everything is not listed. And she said, okay, well, I'm writing everything down. And she said, I will get this information over to your clinical supervisor. So she does that. She emails her. The next day, instead of me giving a call to the office and speaking to my clinical supervisor, I decide, let me go in because I don't have the plan of care for myself. I need them to print me out a copy. So instead of me calling them over the phone, I'm going to go in person. I like to speak to people face to face because I want to be able to discern the type of spirit that you have. If you're lying to me, if you're providing me with the correct information. We're talking about my nursing license, right? My nursing license is on the line whenever I take an opportunity with any employer, because if things are not being done professionally, then I have to back out before I lose what's near and dear to me, which is my license. It's something that I worked hard for. You guys heard the story. If you have not heard the story, go to my YouTube. Watch it on YouTube. The YouTube is something to say the number 2 instead of T-O. Podcast on YouTube. Podcast, I believe it's 21. If it's not 21 at the end, it is definitely 21 on Instagram. But you can go and listen to the episode and find out how hard it was for me to get my license. You guys would understand exactly why I'm feeling the way that I'm feeling. So anyway, I then get another call from another person, which is a scheduler for the company. And this person is to schedule any shifts that I want to take on, or if I want to take off some time, things of that nature. But this particular person is higher up, and she is also the boss, or one of the bosses of my clinical supervisor. So when I get to the office, there's a CEO there. There's a CEO from Texas, and she's there to find out how her home nursing care services is going. And so when my clinical supervisor sees me, she gets scared, because people don't normally come face to face to the office. They actually call on the phone and request what they need. They don't pop up. So I guess she felt like there was something wrong while I was there. So she began to ask me, is everything okay? Did we miss something in the orientation? I said, no, I just wanted you to print out the plan of care, and there's some things I wanted to discuss with you. And she says, okay, well, this is the CEO, and she introduces me to her. She said, this is one of the new nurses on staff, and we met, and she put me in a room with HR, which means she was afraid. She didn't know what to do with me. She was just focused on, I guess, putting up an appearance before the CEO. Okay, I hope you guys are following me. So after she was done with that meeting, she proceeds to come to the office where me and the HR manager were sitting, and she decides to say to me, very sarcastically, she says, I don't know what the client's mother is talking about, because I went over there 2 weeks ago and the plan of care is correct. Everything on there is up to date, so I don't know what she's talking about. I say, hey, listen, I'm just delivering a message. I want to make sure that when I go in, that I'm doing my job correctly. I cannot give any medications if it's not in the plan of care. No, everything is in a plan of care. It's in the system. You'll be able to do it. So I said, okay. She said, listen, you're not going to go in with, blind eyes. You'll be able to do your job correctly. I said, okay, that's all I'm concerned with. And I proceeded to ask her, could she print out the plan of care for me? Right? So she does that. I go home. Next thing you know, I get a call from, like I said, another scheduler up high, and she asks me, well, how did the meet and greet go? She introduces herself, tells me who she is, and basically lets me know that she is my point of contact if I needed to change my schedule. So, I thanked her for that. And again, she asked me, how did everything go? I told her everything was great, that it seemed like a case that I wanted to take on. And then she asks me, well, what else did you and the guardian discuss? So I basically said to her, she said that the plan of care wasn't straightened out, but I did speak to the clinical supervisor. She said that she was going to get in contact with the guardian, go out to the home, and make sure everything was straightened out. So basically, I'm letting this person, the scheduler, know, yes, there was a mishap, but clinical supervisor said she was going to handle it, right? I get a call from clinical supervisor. Clinical supervisor is highly upset with me. Again, this is Friday. I've only known her since Monday, and I've only seen her twice, which is the Monday and the Friday. She calls me and she's very aggravated. She's like, did you discuss the same situation with the scheduler that you discussed with the recruiter? And I'm like, yeah, but it didn't happen in that way. Oh, because I'm getting emails, two emails from two different people discussing the same situation. So I said, let me explain to you what happened. I said, see, the issue is you guys don't have good communication. She said, excuse me? I said, yeah, that's an issue. I said, because remember, I am somebody new coming onto the staff, and there's no reason why two different people are calling me, asking me the same question. And she's like, well, this one is for this and this one is for that. And she's basically explaining these two different people's positions at this agency and who I need to speak to, concerning certain things. So I'm like, okay, yeah, that's fine. But I just want you to know it wasn't like I was throwing you under the bus. I was asked these questions. I felt like they needed to know because they weren't in the loop. Well, I'm going to handle it. Like I stated before, the plan of care and everything is all straightened out. This is what she's saying to me. So I said, okay, fine. So I go into work yesterday. I'm trying to pull up the system because I've already assessed my patient. I've already checked the vitals and everything is fine. And so I go to chart and I'm not in the system. I mean, I can sign in and get onto the programming, but I'm not in the system. And so when I noticed that I wasn't in the system, I'm refreshing a page. I'm trying to do what I can. I'm trying to go over the paperwork, the directions that she had given me, trying to figure it out for myself. That is the type of person that I am. I try to figure out what I can for myself because I'm very independent. Don't like to ask anybody for anything. If I can do it, why not do it? When I seen that I couldn't do it, I call the on-call number, which is an emergency number. When I call the number, no one answers. Actually, the person who answers, they clicked in 33 seconds. I called them again. They didn't answer. Clicked again in another 23 seconds. And this is not something I'm making up, you guys. This is something that I'm actually looking at on my phone. So then the client's mother calls the day nurse. And when she gets on the phone with the day nurse is trying to help me go through and navigate the system. And when she realizes that I wasn't in the system, she says, you know what? I'm going to be over there in 10 minutes. Now, this nurse from the daytime, she actually lives 30 minutes away. This woman comes at night in her pajamas to assist me with clocking on. She doesn't have to do that. But see, that's the type of people that nurses are. See, nurses, I believe, are ordained by the Lord to care for people, to nurse them back to health, to provide healing, to speak into their spirits, to pray over them when they're sick and when they're hurting. So we always have that caring heart, the heart that wants to provide and be of assistance to somebody who may be in need, right? So basically, that's what she did. She came out to help. And when she came out to help me, it filled my heart. It made me feel good. She hadn't known me, never met me, never spoke to me, but was willing to come out of her home 33 minutes away to her job, which she has to get up in the morning for, just to assist me. So I get on the phone. I'm trying to call the on-call number again. No one's answering. So then I see at the bottom of the paperwork to call the clinical supervisor if you have any issues charting. So I call her. This lady answers the phone and she goes off on me. I mean, completely off on me. What she does not know is that I have her on speaker. And not only can a client's mom hear her screaming at me, so can the nurse who just came out of her home to help me. So we're all looking at the phone and we're like in shock. And I said to her, listen, the only reason why I'm calling you is because I'm not listed on the schedule, like something's wrong. So she puts me on hold and she puts me on a schedule within seconds. And all of a sudden it pops up. The screen that I have been trying to refresh, it pops up. Now, when it pops up, I say to her, I said, did you do something? Because now I'm seeing myself in the system. She says, no, I didn't do anything. You weren't supposed to call me. You were supposed to call your CCC. There's no reason for you to call me if this is not regarding any clinical issues. You're calling me to clock in and clock out. I said, no, I'm not calling you to clock in and clock out. Again, you stated that if I had any issues that I could contact you. I said, maybe now is not a good time for me to speak to you. I said, but we will continue this conversation tomorrow. She says, excuse me? Are you talking to me, Nicole? I said, yes, I'm talking to you. And I said, like I said, I will talk to you tomorrow. And I hung up my phone. After I hung up my phone, she texts me an hour later. And in her text message, she's pretty much trying to cover herself. She's trying to have some sort of proof that she has told me who's who over and over. She's trying to cover herself. Now, I don't respond to the email or the text message like I probably would have in the past. God has got me 2 witnesses standing beside me who's heard everything, who's heard all the details of what just happened. So I hold my peace and I said, you know what? I can't do this. There's no way. Knowing what I bring to the table, knowing that I'm working for these people, but I'm not working for them. I'm working for me. There's no way I'm going to allow them to be this unprofessional and mess with my license. See, the on-call number was supposed to answer the phone right away because there could have been any type of emergency. There could have been an emergency with my family. There could have been an emergency with the client. But because no one answered the phone, that was another indication that these people were too unprofessional for me to work with. And then to have her speak to me the way that she did, I wasn't going to accept it. So the nurse that came all the way out just to help me, she gives me the contact information for the DON, which is a higher boss other than the clinical supervisor. When she gives me that number, I get on the phone with her this morning. I send her screenshots of proof of everything on how I was treated, how I was talked to. And I also let her know, hey, listen, you can call the client's grandmother and you can call this nurse who came out in the middle of the night in her pajamas just to help me. She said, you know what? I'm on it. We've had issues with this person in the past, but she said, you know what? If I can make it where I am your point of contact, would you think about staying on? I said, you know what? I'm not sure. This is something that I have to think about because I've seen too many things that made me feel. So back to my story, you guys. I'm sorry. Actually, that was the agency giving me a call, and I did not answer. I'd rather the professionals handle that situation. Anyway, back to my story. So once I discussed the whole situation with the DON, she said, you know what? We don't want to lose you as a nurse. I hope that you reconsider. We really want you to work with this family. I will be your point of contact. You won't have to deal with her. In fact, we've had some issues with her. She is definitely new. We just brought her on board and we've already had a number of issues with her. So I said to her, I don't know. You know, this is something that I have to think about because professionally, there was a few things that I felt could have put my license on the line, and I will never put myself in a position to have my license threatened by unprofessionalism. I can't work in that environment, and this has only been a week. It hasn't even been, and I mean only been a week of me knowing these people who work in the same profession as I do. I said the way that I was spoken to was like I was the scum of the earth. I was beneath her, and she didn't understand why I was even calling her. And she said, well, it doesn't matter what time you called her. She said that the thing is, she was one of the on-call nurses. So she should have been answering your calls. She said, if you pressed option 2, then you should have been able to get her. So she didn't answer you. So I said, okay. I said, well, that's another thing that makes me feel like I shouldn't work for this company. If you don't care that I want to chart on my first night of work, there's no reason for me to ever want to work with you guys. I said, what should have been said to me, even if I was contacting the wrong person, what should have been said to me is, I know this is your first night. I'm sorry that you're having issues. What I will do is, because I can't help you on any of the clocking in or clocking out in the system, What I will do is give you the contact number for the person that can help you, and I hope that everything goes better for you. I will contact you tomorrow and find out how your first shift went. That's exactly what should have been said to me professionally. But as I stated before, sometimes the Lord wants to use the enemy so that he can turn it around for our good. So I said all of this to say that a lot of the times the Lord will allow situations just so that he can bless you the way that he wants to bless you. Just so that he can put you in a better position. The position that you were looking at that you weren't really paying attention to, God has his hands on it specifically for you. And God has put me in a place because that situation happened last night, I can renegotiate my pay. Because although it was a nice amount, it can actually be increased. See, when you belong to God and you are God's child, like the word says, touch not my anointed and do my prophets no harm. You got to know who you're speaking to. When you call yourself being nasty and disrespectful and dishonoring who you are as a person, to come against someone else when you don't like the fact that they are calling you out for not being professional. This is the reason why we need to stand up for ourselves. And I keep saying this over and over again. There is nothing wrong with you standing up for yourself. It is the way in which you do it. There is nothing wrong with you saying how you feel. It is the way in which you say it. Now, don't misinterpret what I'm saying. Should we go off of our feelings all the time? Of course not. Because God is not moved by his feelings, and neither should we be. But when it is something that is going to destroy the very thing that God blessed you with, the very thing that God has anointed you to receive through his will for your life, you don't let no devil in hell come against you to try to take that away from you. There is no way, especially with what I've been through, to get to where I am now, that I am going to allow anybody to speak to me in a manner in which he did, and I'm going to allow them to put me in a place where I could lose what God has given to me. No, ma'am. The situation that I'm speaking on right now is being handled, and it's being handled professionally. And I pray that this woman realizes the position that she took, and that she becomes more loving, more professional, more caring because of the career path that she's chosen. This is a very caring career path. You have to do this with your heart. You cannot be nasty and vulgar and disrespectful and expect people to want to work for you, to want people to work alongside you and feel peace when they do that. There is no way I'm stepping in any position where I don't feel peace about it. If there's no peace there, then I don't want any parts of it, because I know and understand that whatever God has for me is for me. He has laid out certain things for me. He has placed his hands on certain things for me, and that's what I want. I don't want anything that's going to disrupt my spirit, make me angry, and have me going into the client's home, not paying full attention, which the client deserves, not paying full attention to the care that I'm supposed to be there to provide. Please pay attention to how people treat you. I can't say this enough. This is for every walks of life. You have to stand up for yourself. I hope you enjoyed this testimony. I'll give an update on what transpired. No matter what transpired, I know that God has my back. And I know that what is for me will be for me always. So I trust the Lord. I don't care anything about this job. Nursing jobs come a dime a dozen. I'm good. But again, I will always stand up for me because God loves me and he's showing me how to do that. I pray that you guys are learning the same principles. I love you guys. Until next episode, be blessed. Thank you for tuning in to Something to Say, currently airing on Spotify, Podcast, Anchor, web browser, Overcast, Breaker, Pocket Cast, just to name a few. For updates, please follow me on Instagram and TikTok. Both handles are the same. Something to Say Podcast 21. That's SOMETHING, the number 2, SAYPODCAST 21. This is where you can get info on updates for new uploads. You can also comment, like, and share posts. And for those of you who cannot follow us on podcast forums, the link to our YouTube channel is located in the bio. Please subscribe, comment, like, and share so our message spreads out to more listeners. Inbox me or email me, something to say podcast21@gmail.com. Please send in DMs on topics that you'd like to discuss, prayer requests, or questions that you might have. Those of you requesting certain topics can do so anonymously. I pray that the words spoken today will take root in your heart and feed your soul. Until next time, be blessed in the name of our Lord.